My fiancée posted, "Can't wait to be a Mrs." Ring, 2 days after breaking up with me. I was confused until I saw she'd already updated her last name to her ex's on Facebook. I said nothing, just sent the screenshots to his fiancée. When both their relationships exploded simultaneously. I'm 31, male, work in logistics management, and I'm the kind of guy who genuinely believes in doing things right. I proposed after 3 years together. Waited 2 weeks with a ring in my coat pocket, looking for the perfect moment. Dinner, knee on the floor, the whole thing. She cried. We were engaged for 8 months before I found out I'd been living inside a very convincing lie. I want to be upfront about something before I get into this. I didn't catch this because I was suspicious or snooping. I caught it because Facebook's algorithm put a post at the top of my feed at exactly the wrong time, and I followed the thread until it unraveled everything. So, for months before the breakup, things started feeling slightly off. Nothing dramatic. She'd angle her phone away when texting. Gym trips at weird hours. She started mentioning some guy from her college friend group in conversation. Casually at first, the way you drop a name that's supposed to sound harmless. Then more frequently. Once a week, then twice, then almost daily. I told myself I was being paranoid because we had a rough patch about 6 months prior, some arguments about which apartment we'd keep when we moved in together, and we'd work through it. I didn't want to be the guy who self-destructs a good relationship over insecurity. So I waited, watched, said nothing. The breakup happened on a Wednesday night. She came over, sat down on my couch, and told me she needed space, that she felt like she was losing herself, that she loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. I asked her directly if there was someone else. She looked me in the eye and said no, not a flicker. I believed her, or I wanted to, and we agreed to take a break. She left. I sat in my apartment until 2 a.m. doing that thing where you replay the last 6 months, try and find where it started going wrong. 2 days later, I'm on my phone, not even looking at her profile, just scrolling, and Facebook surfaces a post from her right at the top of my feed. Can't wait to be a Mrs. Ring. Posted 2 days after she ended our engagement. I thought it was a glitch. A scheduled post from months ago that misfired. I clicked on her profile to check. Her last name was already changed. Not hyphenated. Not back to her maiden name. Changed to his last name. Fully, completely his, like I had never existed. You don't change your last name on Facebook 2 days after a breakup, unless you've been thinking about that name for a long time. Unless you've been planning. That's not an impulse move. That's a finish line you've been running toward. I went back through her photos. 2 weeks before she ended things with me, she'd posted a photo from a group dinner. He was in it, arm around her shoulder in that particular way. Not the friendly way, the other way. I took a screenshot. Then I went to his Facebook profile. He had a fiancée too. She was right there in his photos, tagged in his posts. A woman who, based on everything I could see, had no idea what was happening. His profile was mostly public. There were anniversary posts, date night photos, a caption from 6 months ago about not being able to imagine life with anyone else. A woman who was sitting somewhere completely unaware that her fiancé had apparently been with my fiancé for the better part of a year. I found her profile, looked at it for a while, made a decision. I didn't send an anonymous message. I didn't write some emotional paragraph. I put together the screenshots, the name change, the post, the group photo with his arm around her, and sent them with short, factual message. I don't know you, but I think you deserve to see this. My fiancé and I just ended our engagement 2 days ago. I found out about this today. I'm sorry you're seeing it. Sent. Phone down. That was it. Within 2 hours, she messaged me back. How long have you known? How long has this been going on? I told her everything I actually knew, which wasn't much. A suspicious timeline, a name change, screenshots of public posts. She had more. She'd had her own suspicions for months and had already found some things on her own. Deleted messages she'd partially recovered. A hotel charge from a weekend he'd told her he spent with his brother. We were both sitting in the wreckage of the same explosion, just from different sides of it. What we didn't know yet was how aggressively these two were about to fight back. Within 48 hours of the screenshots going out, my ex called me. not to apologize, not to explain, to warn me you had no right to go through my Facebook and send things to people. That's harassment. I could have you reported. I let her finish. Then I said, your profile was public. I sent screenshots of public posts. But go ahead. She switched immediately. You're doing this because you're hurt. I understand that, but you're making things worse for yourself. If you just leave it alone, I won't make this into something bigger. There it was. Back down quietly, and I'll let you walk away clean. I said, I hope you two are happy, and hung up. That same evening, he tracked down my number through a mutual contact and sent me a long, formally worded message. The summary: I was a vindictive ex trying to sabotage his relationship out of jealousy. Things between him and my ex were not what I thought, and if I kept interfering, he would consult an attorney. I read it once, screenshotted it, and didn't respond. What he didn't seem to understand is that truth is an absolute defense. I hadn't said anything that wasn't documented. I'd sent public screenshots to someone with a direct personal interest in seeing them. No attorney was touching that, and if he'd actually talked to one before sending that message, he'd have known it. He was betting I didn't know that. He was betting I'd panic. He also told his fiancée I was unstable, that my ex and I had a toxic relationship, that the screenshots were out of context. He'd even called some of her family members to get ahead of the story before she could process what she'd seen. She told me all of this over text. Her messages had that quality of someone still half hoping they're wrong, still looking for an exit from the truth. He says the name change was a dare, she wrote, that she dared him to do it, and she changed hers as part of the joke, that it didn't mean anything. I sat with that for a second. Does that sound like something people do? I wrote back. She didn't respond for a while. Then, no, it really doesn't. Meanwhile, my ex had started working the social circuit. She reached out to my closest friend and told him I'd been emotionally unavailable for months, that she tried to fix things, that the breakup had been coming for a long time and I was too proud to admit it. She framed the whole screenshot situation as me stalking her social media because I couldn't handle rejection. My friend sent me the conversation word for word. She also contacted my sister. My sister, who had met her 4 times, told her she was worried about me and hoped my family could help me through this. My sister called me immediately. She's doing this to make you look unstable before you can say anything else, my sister said. She wasn't even angry. She was just certain. She was right. They were doing perception management. If enough people in my circle heard, he's not handling it well, before they heard my side, my credibility took a hit before I opened my mouth. Then he contacted my employer. Not a formal complaint, just a carefully worded call to HR flagging that a former associate was engaged in a harassment campaign, and he wanted to document it, just enough to plant something. HR called me in. I walked in with my phone and showed them everything. Every message I'd sent, every response I'd received, the full timeline. My HR manager looked through all of it and said, "Is there anything here that would constitute harassment?" "No," I said. "I sent public screenshots to someone with a direct personal interest. Everything else is them contacting me." She nodded. "Thank you for being transparent." That was the end of that. But then I got a message from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, brand new account. "Keep pushing, and people can find out things about you too." Vague enough to be deniable, specific enough to be a threat. I forwarded it to my sister and my friend, screenshotted it with timestamp, and filed a non-emergency report with local police. Not because I thought it would go anywhere immediately, but because I wanted a paper trail. The officer I spoke to said the message alone wasn't actionable, but that documentation was smart. 2 days later, the same account sent another one. "She told me what you did. You think you're clever. You're not." Same process. Screenshot, forward, document. Then the account went quiet. About 10 days into all of this, his fiancée texted me out of nowhere. I found everything. The actual messages. Not the ones he showed me. The real ones. I didn't ask what was in them. They'd been together for almost a year, she wrote. She came to our apartment once. He introduced her to me as a co-worker. I read that twice. My ex had stood in that woman's home, smiled at her, played the role of a co-worker. For almost a year, These two have been running parallel lives alongside ours with level coordinated, deliberate effort that doesn't happen by accident. This wasn't a moment of weakness that spiraled. This was sustained, planned deception maintained over months across two relationships simultaneously. I stopped waiting for remorse and started focusing on documentation. I spent the next week or so organizing everything I had. Every message, every threat, every contact attempt. His through the mutual contact. Hers through my social circle, the anonymous account, the HR call, the outreach to my family. Timestamps on everything. Screenshots in chronological order. Witnesses, my sister, my closest friend, who'd been dragged into it uninvited and could speak to what they'd seen firsthand. I consulted a family law attorney, not because I was planning to sue anyone. I wasn't, but because I wanted to understand the landscape clearly. The attorney reviewed everything and said, "You don't have grounds for a lawsuit based on this, but what you have is a very clean record of a coordinated intimidation campaign that has value, legal and social credibility. If they try to escalate further, a false harassment claim, another HR complaint, anything, my documentation would neutralize it before it started." Then I sent his fiancée the full package. Every message they'd sent me, every contact attempt, the anonymous account logs, all of it organized by date. Whatever you decide about your relationship, this is what they did when they were trying to cover it up. You deserve to make your choice with the full picture. She went quiet for 4 days. Then, I'm staying with my sister. The apartment is his. My attorney is handling the rest. She'd been on the lease with him. Joint lease. She was entitled to half the security deposit, and she moved quickly and correctly. Consulted a tenant's rights attorney, documented her shared joint accounts, transferred only what was legally and clearly hers. She didn't do anything aggressive. She just did everything right fast, with an attorney making sure each step was clean and unchallengeable. He called me after that. I let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes long. He started with anger, moved into guilt tripping, and landed somewhere around bargaining. Something about how none of this needed to happen, and we could have handled it like adults. The irony of that framing, coming from someone who'd sent anonymous threatening messages and called my employer, was something else. I saved the voicemail, added it to the folder. My ex made one final move. She showed up at my apartment. I saw her on the building intercom camera before she had a chance to buzz. I texted her, "I'm not letting you in. If you have something to say it in writing." She stood outside for about 10 minutes. I watched her on the camera. Then she left. That was the last direct contact either of them made with me. The aftermath landed where it was always going to land. He lost the apartment. His fiancée got out clean with her finances intact and her legal standing solid. My ex moved in with him almost immediately after, which meant she was now helping cover rent in the apartment his former fiancée had just vacated. Their relationship, built on a year of coordinated deception across 2 other people's lives, was now fully exposed and entirely their problem to maintain. The mutual friends who'd initially liked her vague Instagram posts mostly came around once they heard the actual story. A couple didn't, and that was fine. You learn a lot about people when the social cost of loyalty goes up. His move to call my HR ended up reflecting badly on him internally too. Professional world is smaller than people assume, and a colleague of mine knew someone in his office. Apparently the documentation attempt had made him look reactive and difficult to his own team. Nothing formal, just a reputation shift he didn't intend. The anonymous account never sent another message. 3 months out, I'm not angry. The anger took more energy than it was worth, and I'd rather spend that somewhere else. What I am is clear-eyed in a way I wasn't before. I spent 3 years with someone and built a detailed picture of who I thought she was, and it turned out I was partly looking at a performance. That sits with you. You question your own judgment, wonder what you missed, whether you should have caught it earlier. Here's where I landed. I didn't miss it because I was stupid. I missed it because I was trusting, and those aren't the same thing. What I did learn is that people in the middle of deception will use your instinct to extend grace against you. Every time I gave the benefit of the doubt, it bought them more time, worth knowing. She posted again about a month ago. Photo of the 2 of them at a rooftop bar. She looks happy. Maybe she is. I stopped spending energy on that question. His former fiancée texted me once more, about 6 weeks after everything fell apart. Just 2 sentences. I'm doing better. Thank you for what you did. That one I kept. The ring is still in a box in my closet. I'll sell it eventually. Not yet. If you read all this and haven't subscribed, you're basically still standing outside my apartment waiting for me to buzz you in.